Hello and welcome everybody. I am thrilled to be here with you today and I'm genuinely excited to kick off this webinar all on neurodiversity awareness. And before we dive into that fascinating world, I just want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Ellis and I am a business psychologist and director of Mindset, and I have dedicated my career to unlocking people's potential at work and in educational settings. So what that means is I explore how individuals think, feel and interact with their organisational setting and try to create a more positive and productive environment where people can really reach their full potential. And this webinar, we're going to dive into a topic that is particularly close to my heart, neurodiversity. So you may already know that around 15% of the UK population is neurodiverse, and it's an astounding number that highlights the incredible diversity of the human mind. And neurodiversity is all about embracing and celebrating the unique way that our brains work and encompasses a number of different conditions. But here's the thing, we can create inclusive practices that don't just support neurodivergent individuals, but actually benefit everyone, regardless of if you're neurodivergent or not. So during this webinar, we're going to explore various aspects of neurodiversity, from debunking myths and misconceptions to discovering strategies for creating a more inclusive and accommodating environment. And I'm confident that by the end of this session, you'll walk away with a deeper understanding and a newfound enthusiasm for neurodiversity. Now, I'm really interested in getting to know you a little bit. If you're happy to, grab your chat box and put in the chat where you are calling from. It's always fun to see how far we're reaching. So let me know, whereabouts are you based? Fantastic. Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire, thank you. London, Germany, Manchester, Brighton. Amazing. I'm off to Brighton next week. Exciting. Hertfordshire, Bournemouth. Hello. South London, Dorset. Oh, lovely. Southampton, Surrey. Fantastic. Oh, is it sunny where you are? Amazing. Brazil. Fantastic. Amazing to see people calling from the UK and across the world. Puerto Rico, we love this. Thank you so much for taking some time with me today. And it's really nice to see so many of you join. And thank you to those of you that are watching the recording. I just want to highlight that this webinar is being recorded and it will be available to watch afterwards. And we'll also email you a link which you are welcome to share with others as well. Okay, so what is neurodiversity? Just as we have differences in our eye colour, our hair texture, and our height, or countless other physical attributes, we also have inherent variations in how our brains work. And that's what neurodiversity means. Just as no two people are alike in their physical traits, our brains also exhibit a beautiful range of variation in our cognitive processing, our perception, and neurological patterns. So quite simply, our brains have natural differences that affect how they work and interpret information. Neurotypical refers to people whose brains work in ways that are considered as typical or expected by societal standards. And being neurodiverse or neurodivergent means that our brains work a bit differently. Our neurodiverse conditions are typically present since birth, but they may not be recognised or diagnosed immediately. Some may become more apparent around the age of 2 or a bit later. During early childhood, children go through those developmental milestones, and it's during that period that certain behaviours or characteristics associated with neurodiverse conditions might become more apparent. Some neurodiverse conditions, however, become more apparent when a young person begins their academic journey because it's often impacting how we learn. And much of our educational practices are not tailored to neurodiverse students, which can make school and learning a challenge for some. These difficulties might stem from various factors related to their neurodivergent conditions. So learning differences, challenges with social interactions or sensory sensitivities, or executive functioning, which is about attention, memory, and planning. Pretty fundamental for school, right? So those individuals might encounter some setbacks and encounter difficulties in adapting to the traditional educational approach, which means that they could face some social exclusion and diminish their motivation and belief in their abilities, often leading to low confidence and self-esteem. And the previous hardships experienced by those neurodiverse individuals in education can erode their confidence and create barriers that hinder their pursuit in higher education. There's only a 12.5% prevalence of neurodiversity in higher education compared to around 31.5% in Key Stage 5. You can see there the difference. And sadly, it means that more students across our education cycle are more likely to disengage, have poorer outcomes, and withdraw from their study. And by the adult population, around 1 in 7 people are neurodivergent. And that highlights that approximately around 15% of the population possess that brain that functions a bit differently from the neurotypical norm. And despite that sizable neurodivergent population, only 10% of organisations currently factor neurodiversity into their people management practice. So we need to do better with this. Now, I'd like to take a moment to explore your current knowledge of neurodiverse conditions. There's currently 7 main ones. So can we as a group perhaps guess as many of those as possible? So again, use your chat box. How many neurodiverse conditions are you aware of? ADHD, dyslexia, autism, ADD, absolutely. Dyspraxia, fantastic. Amazing. Autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, Tourette, fantastic. Dyscalculia or dyscalculia, sometimes it's pronounced. Thank you very much. SLI, thank you. Fantastic. So I think we have got all but one that I am mentioning. So let's go through them all now. So firstly, before I mention these, often when we're talking about a diagnosis, it does require some attention to weaknesses. But I want to clearly state now that with neurodiversity comes many strengths. So I'm going to discuss them both now. Firstly, you've got autistic spectrum disorder. ASD is a developmental condition characterized by differences in social interaction, communication, and repetitive behaviours. And it's considered a spectrum disorder because it varies widely in its presentation, and each individual has unique strengths and differences. People with autism may experience challenges in understanding and expressing social cues, such as maintaining eye contact or understanding gestures, or maybe engaging in reciprocal conversations. They may have a difference in their communication and their routines, particularly when it comes to repetitive behaviours. And then they might have intense interest in specific subjects. Some have sensory sensitivities, particularly to stimuli such as noise, touch, or light. But with the right accommodations and understanding, individuals with autism can make significant contributions and really leverage their unique perspectives and strengths. Then we have ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and that affects an individual's ability to focus, control impulses, and regulate hyperactivity. Dyslexia is a learning condition that affects reading, spelling, and language processing. Then dyscalculia or dyscalculia is a learning condition that affects mathematical ability and number sense. Then we have dyspraxia, also known as developmental coordination disorder or DCD, and that affects your coordination and often your planning skills as well. I'm not sure if anybody mentioned this one, but there's one called dysgraphia, and that is a condition that affects handwriting and your fine motor skills. So individuals with dysgraphia might experience difficulties in their letter formation and spacing and overall legibility. And then we have Tourette's syndrome or Tourette's, which is a neurological condition characterized by involuntary movements and vocalizations such as tics. And as you all know, there are many more to the neurodiverse spectrum. And it's really important to note that it does extend beyond the conditions that are mentioned, and there are probably many more that are yet to be recognised. So thank you so much for all of your answers there, and some of you have added some of those different ones like synesthesia, for example. I wish I had time to go through them all now, but do get in touch if you want more information. But I mentioned strength. Okay, as I said before, being neurodiverse brings unique strengths and abilities that can really benefit organisations, and they often possess really exceptional qualities that can contribute to a diverse and dynamic workforce. And people with neurodivergent thinking can lead to innovative ideas and creative solutions and really unique perspectives. Some individuals possess a very good attention to detail and can excel in tasks that require more precision or accuracy. Some develop a really specialized knowledge in their specific area of interest and become experts in that particular field. Pattern recognition and analytical thinking is another strength. So individuals might identify trends and anomalies that others may overlook, which means they're quite good at problem solving and data analysis. And another one you'll see quite frequently is remarkable creativity and excel in thinking outside of the box. They might look at something with an unconventional angle, but lead to breakthrough ideas and a really fresh perspective. But sadly, not everybody thinks that neurodiversity can be a strength. So I want to spend a moment thinking about some myths and doing a bit of a myth-busting true or false game. So keyboards at the ready, true or false. Being neurodiverse means you will have a low IQ. Fantastic. False. Absolutely. Fantastic. Being neurodiverse does not correlate with low intelligence. It's very false, absolutely. Many people with neurodifferences are highly intelligent, and people often see the world differently, making them a huge asset to any team. Number two, being neurodivergent is a lifelong condition. Fantastic. Well done. So many neurodivergent conditions are indeed considered lifelong. If you were listening to me earlier, you may have noticed that I've mentioned this. So they don't typically go away or disappear over time. Individuals can develop coping strategies and acquire skills and receive support that means that they can manage some of their challenges effectively. So we need to make sure that we approach with appropriate understanding and access to resources. And number three, it is obvious if someone is neurodiverse. Absolutely. Fantastic. Yeah, not all disabilities are visible. And it's important to recognise that some individuals might develop some coping mechanism. There's such a thing called masking or people can avoid certain situations that present them with challenges. So it's important again to just highlight the appropriate support and accommodations so that they can reach their full potential. But those reasonable adjustments, are they expensive? Reasonable adjustments are often expensive. What do we think here? Fantastic. Looks like we've got a full house and that we've all got absolutely everyone correct. Well done. Reasonable adjustments can be quite simple and completely free. And today I'm going to share my top 5 tips for all organisations to support neurodiversity. And many of them don't cost a thing. So before I go into those, just to highlight that our world is primarily built around the needs and preferences of neurotypical individuals and often overlook the diverse strengths and perspectives of neurodiverse individuals. And it's so important to make those adjustments to promote inclusivity, understanding and acceptance for people across the neurological spectrum. And there are so many adjustments that can be implemented very easily and at little to no cost at all. And some of these adjustments that I'm mentioning today have far-reaching positive effects, not just for our neurodiverse friends, but actually for the entire community. Now, the first one of the first steps towards creating a more inclusive environment is to adopt a non-judgmental approach. Many people can jump to conclusions without considering different perspectives, and particularly when it comes to somebody's behaviour. So I want you to consider a scenario that highlights the importance of reframing our perspective. Imagine that you have a person in a class or a training day who seems hesitant to join a group activity. Initially, some people might judge them for not participating, assuming that they're disinterested or unfriendly or lack enthusiasm. But if you reframe the scenario, you could consider an alternative perspective. And instead of jumping to conclusions, let's pause and reflect on the possibility that somebody might be finding the situation challenging due to their neurodiversity. It might be that they're experiencing social anxiety, struggling with sensory overload, or facing some difficulties in engaging and initiating social interactions. So in such cases, their decision to avoid the activity is not a sign of indifference or unwillingness, but it might be more of a coping mechanism to protect their well-being. So we need to develop a non-judgmental approach where we can replace our initial assumptions with more empathy and understanding. So rather than labeling someone as disengaged or poorly behaved, we can recognise that they may be navigating their neurodiversity in a world that might not be accommodating their needs. So try and reframe your perspective and avoid snap judgments and foster more inclusivity and compassion. Instead of making assumptions or judging their behaviour, you could recognise that they might have their unique experience and try to understand their perspective without making assumptions. I would recognise this and seek an understanding to gain insight into the factors that might be influencing their choices or actions not to participate, and then offer support and assistance without imposing it. Let them know that you're available and if they want someone to talk to or if they require any help. So by approaching situations non-judgmentally, we can create more of a supportive and inclusive community where individuals feel more understood, accepted, and empowered. The next thing I want you to consider is the number of unwritten rules in our society. There are quite a number of unwritten rules that shape our daily interactions and our expectations. And these rules often are unspoken and implicit, and they guide our choices every single day. So it might be things like what mug you can drink out in the staff room, or what you can wear, and how we might communicate with each other. While neurotypical individuals might effortlessly navigate and understand those social cues, for neurodiverse individuals, these unwritten rules can be quite challenging to decipher. So consider the scenario of choosing what to wear on a morning Zoom or a Teams call. Neurotypical individuals might instinctively know that it's probably best to get out of bed and change out of their pajamas, or at least from the top half. However, someone on the neurodiverse spectrum, those nuances might not come naturally. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen any policy or expectation that we shouldn't wear pajamas to work, but somehow that there is that expectation that we shouldn't do that. And some neurodiverse people might struggle to understand those unspoken social expectations, which leads to more confusion or even anxiety. Can anyone else think of any others, perhaps in their organisation? What unwritten rules do we have? Not talking over people, absolutely. Waiting your turn to speak. How formal or informal internal emails are, great suggestion. Personal space, not speaking too loud, yeah. Waiting for everyone at lunch table, then starting to eat. Oh, good one. Never thought about that one. Hierarchy of authority, definitely. So some really good suggestions there. And it's crucial to recognise that those unwritten rules can inadvertently exclude or marginalise individuals who might not grasp them intuitively. So if we want to promote inclusivity, we need to make these implicit rules more explicit and openly discuss and clarify expectations to try and bridge that gap and create more of a level playing field. It could be that we provide clear guidelines on dress codes or communication styles or the expected etiquette that can help those neurodiverse individuals feel more comfortable and empowered to navigate those social situations with more confidence and improve engagement at your organisation. I can see some more coming in there, which again are fantastic. When striving for inclusivity, it's also essential to recognise and address the obstacles that individuals may encounter due to their neurodiversity. And they can vary greatly and impact different aspects of their life, including education, their employment, and their social interactions. And by considering those obstacles and providing support to overcome them, we can provide an environment that fosters more growth and success. And it's crucial that we understand that there are some challenges, such as perhaps sensory processing, executive functioning, communication, or emotional regulation. And those challenges can affect their ability to navigate those everyday tasks or participate fully in certain environments. So let's think back to our person that wasn't engaging in our classroom or our training. I would always encourage you to ask what their needs are beforehand so that they can decide what might be best for them. But perhaps we can offer providing the activity beforehand and some expectations. With that person, we could pair them in a smaller group of people. We could even think about allowing them to complete the activity in more of a sensory friendly area. So perhaps a separate room that makes them feel more comfortable because it's quieter. And we need to be better at promoting more inclusive practices, such as those flexible arrangements or more clear communication guidelines and some targeted support that can really significantly enhance the neurodiverse individuals' opportunities to thrive in those academic, professional, and social settings. And a lot of those accommodations, we can actually unlock everybody's immense potential, because a lot of noisy environments and larger groups can actually be overwhelming for many people. Now, I'm going to give you a moment to read the message on this case. So I really want to highlight the changes or adjustments should not rest solely on our neurodivergent friends. It is our collective responsibility to acknowledge the diverse ways in which individuals experience the world and take proactive steps to accommodate and support them. And one area where we can all become more inclusive is to improve the communication of our expectations and our instructions. Because often we assume that everyone understands the information in the same way, and that certain expectations are universally known. But that assumption creates barriers for neurodiverse individuals who might process information differently or struggle with grasping implicit instructions. So to address this, we must prioritise clear and explicit communication. So don't rely on unspoken cues or assumptions. Try to provide more clear instructions and guidelines and leave no room for ambiguity. That includes clearly articulating what is required, setting some realistic goals, and providing detailed explanation where it's needed. And I also like to welcome and invite questions so that people can clarify if they're ever unsure. And by doing these things, we can create much more inclusive environment where everybody, regardless of neurodiversity, can fully comprehend and meet our expectations. And something that helps with this, and my final point, is around visual communication. We're all doing so much more online now, and much of what we do involves presentations and documentation to communicate and educate people. So our visual communication plays a vital role in engaging everyone, and it's particularly helpful for neurodiverse individuals. Particularly if it's done well, it can provide clear and accessible means of conveying information and significantly enhance understanding and comprehension. So when you are creating visuals for audiences, there's some top tips that I have to ensure their best effectiveness. So firstly, think about your font. Choose easy to read font, ensure it's an appropriate size and colour, and spacing to improve readability. And I also avoid using underlines or underscores because this can clutter the letters. Then your visual should be clear and uncluttered and free from any kind of unnecessary complexity. Try to avoid overcrowding the screen, excessive text or graphics or distracting elements. And try and simplify the presentation to focus on core messages or information. You'll also note that I use a lot of muted colours. So I would recommend opting for a colour palette that's calming and easy on the eyes, because bright and saturated colours can cause some overwhelm for individuals with more sensory overload or visual fatigue. So those muted colours, pastel shades, softer tones create a much more comfortable viewing experience. And finally, an off-white background is beneficial, as opposed to a pure white one. It can help reduce that visual glare and create, again, another more comfortable viewing experience for individuals who might be more sensitive to bright lights or harsher lighting. And I hope that by following those guidelines, you'll be able to create more inclusive materials that can cater to neurodiversity, and it reduces visual fatigue, which is great for everyone, really. So in embracing and implementing some of those adjustments to support neurodiverse individuals, we're not only going to empower those neurodiverse people, but also we could be unlocking the true potential of our entire community. The adjustments we've made, we're looking at sensory needs and communication styles and learning preferences, and they will benefit neurodiverse individuals, but I think a lot of them will also enhance our collective experiences. So together we could create more welcoming, understanding and compassionate spaces, regardless of their neurotype, and potentially create more opportunities for everyone to reach their full potential. Now, there's so much more I could say on this topic, and if you are intrigued to learn more, we do offer a range of further training, and it is CPD certified, so you can be assured you are receiving high quality training that aligns with our professional standards. And whether you're looking for a 1-hour webinar or a dynamic workshop, or a course that's tailored to managers, we've got you covered, and we can also provide more bespoke training if you've got unique needs. And our engaging and interactive sessions provide those practical insights and strategies to foster a much more inclusive organisation. And if you wanted to inquire about our training, you can email me directly at the email address provided. And anyone that's registered at the webinar will get a 10% discount, and those details will be emailed to you after the event, along with the recording. And additionally, I do recommend, if you are happy to, scan the QR code, because I have created a PDF which is available totally free with 14 ways to embrace neurodiversity in their organisation. It does require you to sign up to our mailing list, but don't worry, I don't bombard you with newsletters. We just like to send out occasional helpful information, free things, free trainings, news and offers. And if you did enjoy this webinar, then I hope you can join us again. So if there's any questions, do pop them in the chat box for me now. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you found our webinar insightful, and do not hesitate to get in touch. Yes, there will be a link to the recording, and you're welcome to share it with anyone you think might want to watch it. Thank you so much, everyone. How about creating diverse workshops which are default tailored to neurodiverse people? Absolutely, we can definitely do that. Link of the QR code, I can definitely get that. Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words, everyone. Have a fantastic day. Yes, you can get the free PDF by registering for the mailing list directly through the website. That is not a problem. I will get the link here as well. That was a good point. I will add that now. There you go, everyone. Link is directly in the chat box for you. Thank you so much.